I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the basketball podcast. I am Ben Detrick. With me, as usual, you might guess, right across the table from me, Jordan Redaelli is here.
Welcome all of you people listening to Cookies, right?
And for the second episode, but for the first week of potentially two, Andrew Kuo is not here.
Yeah, not present.
Present but excused.
Excused. I didn't think that I missed him on the last show. And then throughout the week, when I had to come to the realization that he was going to join us, he would not be joining us, on this show, I was hit with a twinge of melancholia. And so now I made one of his teas. Sorry, Andrew. I used the last of your tea, but the aroma is keeping your spirit here in the air at Cookies HQ.
Was that the last one of the Kuo caffeinated cinnamon? What's the brand?
Oh, I don't know. Are you trying to get another endorsement in there? If those who don't know, Ben is now a Oatly ambassador after his little milk rant.
They did say some nice things about the Cookies franchise on Twitter, but I have not seen a delivery of multiple cartons of Oatly, a delicious oat milk beverage, arrive at the Cookies HQ unless it did and the interns made off with it.
How long does oat milk last for? Would they send it to you, every couple of weeks, a couple of cartons, or can they just send you a crate? It can sit there for a whole year.
It's a great question, and I have no idea, being that I'm a novice oat milk enthusiast. I will say there was an oat milk shortage in New York over the last year.
What do you mean an oat milk shortage? Did Cyclone fucking Trev go through and ruin the oat milk crops?
He ruined someone sowed all of the wild oats, and it was Trev. But yeah, there was an actual shortage. I was not enough of a oat milk expert at the time to be affected by said shortage, but it did happen.
What was it, an abundance of assholes drinking it, or why would there be an oat milk shortage?
An abundance of assholes drinking it, but a dearth of oat milk to be drunk by said assholes. I believe that would be the supply and demand connection.
Is this like when Jameson got really popular 10 years ago and they didn't really have enough properly aged Jameson, so they just stuck a bunch of inferior product out there?
Yeah, isn't that what's kind of happening with Mezcal right now too? Isn't that sort of the deal? It got popular and then these cacti that take 25 years to grow that were harvested on a small level and are now popular, and the market's just being flooded with mediocre mezcal.
What is it called when you kill a young mezcal plant in order to make the product? Kind of like venison. Was there a
tequila?
Oh, is that true?
Kind of, right? I mean, aren't they all from agave plants?
I'm guessing that you guessed that.
It's a bit of a guess. And we have no guests today.
No guests.
So how was the feedback about your new haircut over the last week?
Jesus Christ.
I was one of the first people to see it, and I'm wondering how...
It hasn't... Why do you keep saying a week? It's 3 days. We do this show every goddamn 3 days now, so...
I've missed you is what it is.
What's the feedback been like? I don't know. I've been inside most of the time. What I have? I got Doom Patrol to watch, dude. Yeah, I don't really know. I haven't seen anyone except for you. The one person I saw said that I looked like you but more handsome. So
I don't know what they're getting that kind of feedback for. That's just a goddamn lie. Because you're significantly more gray than I am.
Yeah, I look like an old woman. It's going pretty well. I cut my hair, trying to look less like Rick from Rick and Morty, and now I just look like B. Arthur instead. I'm like full Golden Girls.
We've decided that you're going to be one of those men who transforms into an elderly lesbian, right?
Yes, I think that's been made clear before. And
Right, you and Steve Nash.
yeah, it's just it seems to be our destiny. I might even buy some pearls, get a nice Hermes handbag,
Pull up in that Subaru.
some Dr. Scholl's. I already got the Mephistos. Ah, fuck, I'm already an old lady. What are we talking about?
Yeah, I don't even know why we're speculating.
Yeah. You know what else old ladies enjoy? Kombucha.
I mean, follow your gut.
And, you got mad jokes today, huh?
I'm looking at the back of the bottle.
Oh, is that what it says?
It says follow your gut.
Oh, well, I noticed that you have a fridge full of kombucha, too.
Yeah, it's a health aid
Wait,
kombucha.
are we drinking the same flavor?
This is a bubbly, ginger lemon.
I'm also drinking a ginger lemon.
Oh, it's the cookie's way.
I also had a lemon yogurt for breakfast for my pre cookies warm up.
When the fuck is Quo getting back?
Oh yeah.
Go on. I'm sorry. Let's hear more about your explorations of the lemon flavor.
No, I guess I like lemon, but who doesn't? You know what I don't like? I don't like lime. What?
Fine. All right, let's just do this. Okay, go off, King.
What?
Go off, Lord. Tell us why you don't like lime.
I just don't like it. I didn't say I needed a goddamn reason, but do you not find it curious that I like lemon, but I'm not into lime?
Is it compelling?
I don't like the taste of
varying
lime. I
differences?
don't like lime in food. I don't like... Someone puts a lime in my beer, I almost fucking lose it. Like, disgusting.
What about
but I love lemon.
all right, Mexican beer?
No.
You go no lime. I've seen this happen. I mean, I know you don't want a lime in your Tecate. Would you accept a lemon in your Tecate?
I would prefer no citrus go anywhere near my fucking beer. But if someone insisted, like if I was...
Gun to your head.
Gun to my head, I'll take a lemon. But you got to be careful with the limes. Because you know about like the lime burn?
Let's hear it.
Well, it happens a lot. It's really funny. It's actually not though. So the people have like, the lime in their Coronas, and then they like take a sip from it, and then the citric acid goes around the corner of your mouth, and then if you're out in the sun, it amplifies the sunburn. You can get like really horrendous burns, and it's like basically brown. It looks like a dirt stain on your face. And it can take months to go away. So leading into summer now, guys, be careful. Make sure you wipe the top of your bottle or the top of your lip before going out in the sun, because you might end up with like a disfiguration that makes you look like a shit eater. And also be careful squeezing it, because you can get on your hands and you can have these like crazy brown splotchy burns that won't go away for months all over your hands.
Does that happen to people who work outside and they're chopping up limes and like putting them in drinks it's like at the beach?
I'm going to imagine that people who work with these citrus fruits are cognizant of this fact. Maybe it was part of their training, or maybe they've been doing it for so long that they've been burned before and they don't want to get burned again. But I'm just this is like more of a shout out to people like trying to go to Tulum and shit, and you know, the youngsters out there that are yet to mix booze and beach.
So New York Magazine had an article recently, and it declared that Tulum is over. That it's done.
No shit. You needed a magazine to tell you that, Mexico boy?
I am not saying this was news to myself. I'm saying now it is public knowledge that Tulum is over. And some of the things they brought up were noise, waste, the cost of going there.
You mean like baskets of shit paper everywhere?
I mean, it could look like a shit eater, is what you're saying. Lime burns as far as the eye can see.
Look, man.
Did you ever go to Tulum?
I did. I went with a bunch of like champagne hippies to film like some end of the world party or some shit. It was awful. They were like smoking frogs or something. I don't know. I wasn't paying that much attention because they were awful.
You didn't smoke frogs when presented with an opportunity to have a little hit of toad?
No. Someone explained to me like how they made like mushroom infused like trip brownies or something for like 45 minutes, and that's when I decided I was going to get a flight home as soon as possible. It was
Well,
very
FYI,
annoying.
Tulum is over.
Yeah.
It's been declared over.
So what's next, Ben? What's like somewhere in Argentina? What's your next like cool vacay spot?
This whole declaring a place next and then over is such a ridiculous vicious circle that's happened forever. But now it's kind of amplified, right? Where like, you know where people are. And like Portugal, for example.
I knew you were going to say Portugal.
But that's a good example, right? We saw over the last 2 years, 3 years, there's sort of become a critical mass of people you follow on Instagram who went to Lisbon or went to Porto or wherever. And it's the same thing that happened in Mexico City. It's the same thing that happened in Tulum. It's this drumbeat of people going. Then it becomes like the consensus and everyone goes there. Then it becomes over. And like, I guess this is more the realization.
It's like going to Montauk. No one goes to Montauk anymore.
Exactly. But now it happens so fast and in remote places and so thoroughly where you're sort of like, oh man, if you hear some place is cool, you should try to go right away.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be
And then-
over
and then it's like-
in like a year.
And it's a bunch of, well, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's over or not. Clearly, you find the need to be first and fancy. But what about, I'm thinking about these people like in Belize who find out that their shit is hot and they start building infrastructure to account for these things. They're building new hotels, fancy restaurants, and actually no one's coming anymore because Ben Detrick declared it dead on cookies.
Okay, we're here in Panama City. We're excited for this impending tourist explosion. I'm sorry, is this Cookies 126? We're done. Wrap it up. No more construction. Let's go back to being what we are.
So should the NBA get a wriggle on and get that goddamn franchise in Mexico City before assholes from New York stop going? By the way, I'm calling everyone assholes today. I decided.
Yeah, you're off the dipshits movement.
Well, you know, dipshits is reserved for dipshits. Assholes is universal. Everyone's an asshole today. Dipshits is specifically for the people who listen to Cookies.
Said with a lot more love
Yeah, way more love.
as a shit eater.
All the
would say.
love.
Now, I do think the NBA should get a franchise in Mexico City. I think that would be really cool. Because with no offense towards smaller markets, it would be interesting to see if large market factors that we talk about in New York and LA and Chicago apply to, say, a city with 25 million fucking people. I think that would be cool.
I agree. Is there a Mexican or Spanish player that they would be able to attain in the expansion to kickstart this
I don't think
Viva
there's...
Revolution?
Yes, vive that. I don't think there's a Mexican player right now. There was Nahara was the god. When I was at the game down there, there were guys wearing like full kits, New Jersey Nets or Mavericks. I mean, he was the legend of that entire city, that country. And there were some guys who played earlier, but he's really the one.
Is he still playing?
Nah, he's been out of the league for like 10 years. He might have been on that Mavericks title-winning team.
Okay, so but what I'm saying is there's got to be like one best player in Mexico, right? Did they give him a roster spot on the Mexican team?
Definitely.
Okay, that's.
Or they just have to be like, all right, Carlos Arroyo, we're just going to have to bring you into the fold. I'm like, yeah, just say you're down here. Say you're one of us.
Maybe Andrew Wiggins could be naturalized as a Mexican.
The naturalization process would probably be their best bet. Find someone who loves being on the team and just make them a
'Cause
citizen.
Honestly, like United States of American citizen will do it, but a Canadian might.
Yeah, just some NAFTA shit. Like, what's the difference?
Yeah,
Yeah. Tristan Thompson, you're Mexican now.
I'm for that. Oh, you're choking on that booch. You're not a You're not a seasoned pro like some of us here at Cookies.
Well, it's more that I'm trying to carefully unscrew it to avoid that light hiss that you get from the carbonated beverage.
Oh man, it's all about that hiss. The hiss.
A nice hiss.
Yeah. Some call it Schweppervescence.
Well, in basketball news, there's a tournament going on of which I have not watched a game. It is
It's an esports thing?
It seems to be a children's tournament. The teens are out there playing.
Oh, I saw something on ESPN5 about this.
Yeah, they're unpaid teens. They've got a big tournament to crown the unpaid teen championship, and they've got some big name millionaire coaches who are leading the charge for each individual institution. We'll say.
Hey man, have you seen how much it costs to babysit in New York? It's like $80 an hour. So it makes sense that these guys are getting $5 million for an entire year of looking after 16 children.
That's true.
Math adds up. They do sleepovers. They have to take them on trips. They have to teach them
How to
dribble.
They have to watch them for 5 hours a day at 2 separate practices, one in the morning and one at night, so that the youth can wear sweatpants all day long.
That's true.
They have to go on buses and planes.
Yeah, I think I covered the travel part of it, but
Just really be more specific.
yeah.
So yesterday, in one of the games between these children's teams, Michigan State coach babysitter Tom Izzo, who is widely respected. He has won a championship at some point in the last 20 years.
You think?
I think he did. Pretty sure he did. Maybe Mateen Cleaves era. But he berated a freshman on the Spartans during a game. And it was not just a situation where the coach angrily barked a few words in his direction. He kept at it and had to be restrained by other teens to keep him from it looked like almost physically approaching the teen. I'm not saying he would have hurt the teen, but he was aggressively going after him. And then in the little huddle on the sideline, he did the same, and more mature teens had to hold back the angry old man.
It was, I'm not sure what was said, but it looked like a little bit more than your regular dressing down or chastising of a wayward, troubled teen.
H to the Izzo. I don't even know what the H stands for in this situation.
Heated.
But this brought out the obvious debate that one would suspect from a widely circulated video clip of Izzo screeching like a deranged banshee at a child. There was people who said, why is this multimillionaire screaming at an unpaid teen? Other people said, that's what lends itself to like making a man. That is what teaches character, being screamed at on national television by a grown adult when you are a freshman in college. That's what turns you into a good adult person. Where do you stand on that, Jordan?
Like solidly with a foot in each camp. I think
I love when you get to straddling.
I think coaching and getting your point across and firmly getting your point across to somebody who isn't listening. Like maybe they worked on this shit all week in practice and he just didn't do it. And he's like, I've had enough of you. Jesus Christ, how dumb are you? Like we've gone over this 40,000 fucking
idiot
times.
Kid. This dumb child.
Yeah, he's like, you pick the plastic block up and you go over and you put it in that basket. But what I saw there was him just lighting into somebody, which I don't think pretty much anybody, if you're part of a team in sports, and these kids are basically fucking interns. And I know we speak to our interns like that, but we would never do it on national TV.
Absolutely not. I mean, I love screaming in the interns' faces after they put up an image of Luka Doncic and they compare him to Chris Farley. That is not what we do here at Cookies, and yet they repeatedly do it. I tell them not to, so I have to get in their faces and shove them around. I have to scream and say, no, Luka Doncic does not resemble Chris Farley circa Beverly Hills Ninja.
Yeah, and sometimes, I feel bad yelling at the interns so much, so I don't. I'll just ask them gently to go and get me a ginger lime kombucha from the fridge. And when they peek their head in there, I just slam the door on their heads. Just like boom, boom. And depending on what their...
the strength of their neck.
Yeah. I might give them a couple more. But again, sometimes I've spent all week telling them to get the right kind of flames on the text. I'll be like, have you guys not ever seen Pen and Pixel? You fucking 16-year-old idiots.
Seriously, are you unfamiliar with the Soulja Slim discography? Do you not know anything about Mystical?
Yeah. Where have you been the last 22 years, you fucking dork? Boom! Give him another one with the freezer.
My thing with Izzo is this. It's totally cool to bark at somebody. You can totally be angry coach. Get the fuck over here. What are you fucking thinking? It's the prolonged berating. Like, everyone expects you to yell because that's acceptable on a basketball court. We all do that. You're playing ball. Someone doesn't pass you the rock when you're open. You're like, dude, pass me the fucking ball. Acceptable. Chasing them around and yelling in their face gets you punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
And that's the problem of this power dynamic. This is a teen who is bigger than Tom Izzo, in much better shape than Tom Izzo, yet is unable to, by law, by custom, by this entire system, jab him in the face 3 times. Choke him out, Sprewell style. If that was a possibility, Izzo would not be in his face. And Izzo, you can tell, has insane coffee breath. Just wild, like Sanka mouth. He would get 2 to the snot box, and he'd be far more polite the next time down.
Well, it's funny. Like, this is not kind of, it's not really related, but I'm going to say it anyway. The horrific shooting in New Zealand last week,
Yes.
of Muslim mosques, with perpetrated by an Australian. There was an Australian politician who came out and basically blamed the Muslim community for moving there and moving in.
It was fucking vile and insane.
And he was hit with an egg by Egg Boy, immortalized by Ben Simmons and a few other Australian NBA players, who cracked a fucking egg over this racist piece of shit's head, which was amazing. And said racist piece of shit turned around and punched a 17-year-old kid in the face twice, and then the 17-year-old kid came back at him. And it's kind of like, if y'all want to start talking to people like this, like, why not? If Tom Izzo is going to yell at this kid, why is it okay for this politician to punch a 17-year-old kid in the face as an overreaction to something mild, but it's not okay for this 17-year-old kid to punch a 60-year-old fucking dude who's screaming at him and embarrassing him on national TV in the chops as well?
I also think,
I'm not condoning eye for an eye, but maybe Izzo needed a little rabbit punch, give him a little reminder.
just a quick knee to the testicles could have really cooled Izzo's jets.
Maybe just grab him by the ear and drag him to half court and force him down onto his knees and be like, "Stay there and think about what you've done, Tommy boy."
Maybe a little thumb fish hook to the old jowl.
Yeah. Woo.
Just jowl him down.
Or maybe just as Izzo walks across, he just kicks one foot into the other and he trips him over.
I would have liked that.
Yeah, that would have been nice. But whoop, sorry, Tom.
The crazy thing was that there were other teenagers with the clear voices of reason who pulled Izzo away. It's like you were yelling at a child and had to have other children gracefully separate you.
Well, I mean, the thing is, these children are thinking mostly of Tom. they're like, Tom, don't do anything you regret and lose that $5 million a year that we won't see anything of. we
care about you and your descendants.
We want you to keep your money, even though you'll never speak to us again after this year because we didn't do anything or enough to help you get past the round of 16. We don't want you to leave empty-handed. Not that you would, because you probably could have struck this child and
would have been
you
fine.
would have been fine.
Anyway, yeah.
It's kind of interesting that this is the only thing we care about in the NCAA tournament.
I care about John Morant, if that's how you say his last name, because he dunks really good. But I'm going to wait a little while. I got to say, man, the Zion shit is... Him going to Duke has been a large problem for me. I can't watch Duke games because you see the crowd behind him. They cut to the crowd. I can't watch Duke fans celebrating Zion. It's a completely unwatchable scenario. I cannot wait until Zion is at any one of the teams where he's projected to go. Put him in Phoenix, I'll watch it religiously. Put him in New York, incredible. Atlanta, him and Trae Young, fantastic. So many great places, and I will watch them all because there will not be leering Duke fans behind him, leaping up and down, doing stupid chants before they enter the field of hedge fund banking.
I watched the Zion return game at local Brooklyn establishment Bernie's. Shout out to Zach Frankel and co. And
Alex Frankel, Holy Ghost, is a former Cookies guest.
Yes. Much to the chagrin of Zach, who knows a lot more about basketball than Alex, but that's for another time. Get some like spicy brotherly feuds happening, please, Cookie style. And see, now you threw me off with the fucking thing. And they have crayons and tablecloths there. I drew a massive Duke University sign whilst I was watching that game, and I forgot to tear it off the tablecloth and mail it to you.
Well, I appreciate part of that story, the part about you forgetting to mail it to me.
I know.
I like that part. Well, anyway, the tournament happened, but you alluded...
Happened? I think it's still going on, isn't it?
I think it's like another week or so until we can get to what I really care about, the final weeks of the NBA regular season.
And what's happening in the final weeks of this NBA season?
Well, you alluded to the basketball genius, egg boy appreciator, Ben Simmons on the Sixers. And Philadelphia played Boston 2 days ago. And it was the first time the Sixers had beaten the Celtics in a meaningful game since one of the games in last year's playoffs. So Philly was in a situation where they lost, I believe, in a gentleman's sweep to the Celtics, then had gotten beaten by them throughout the season. And it was a showdown. It was in Philadelphia.
So it's 3-1 this season then.
Yeah, and that's
also a gentleman's sweep.
Sort of.
Well, yes, 3-1 is a gentleman's sweep.
Well, 4-1 would be the gentleman's sweep.
Oh, yeah.
But this was a meaningful victory for the Sixers because in relation to their new look roster with Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler, it was kind of proof of concept. We can beat Boston with this team. And it definitely meant a lot to Philly. You probably did not watch this game, Jordan.
I watched the shit out of this game.
Well, fantastic. Does this, in your mind, give proof of concept?
No.
Can the Sixers beat the Celtics based on what you saw on Wednesday night?
No. Not at all. Are you kidding me? The reason that they won is because Embiid got to the line like 47 times. How many did he actually shoot? It was like 26 or 28 free throws or something. It was something completely insane to the Celtics' 10 free throws. And you noticed a huge uptick in him getting to the line once Marcus Smart was removed from the game and they didn't have that perimeter defense. I think the loss of Marcus Smart, also Aaron Bynes, who was giving Embiid some serious work down low.
Down low.
Yeah, yes.
Really plowing into his undercarriage.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, anyway, okay, so to your
Okay.
point, 21 foul shots for Embiid en route to 37 points and 22 rebounds. So a monster game.
Yeah, and
despite the
he
fact
wasn't
that
getting
his-
getting those boards, and he wasn't getting those shots if Aaron Bynes was still taking him downstairs. And the ejection of Marcus Smart was a huge turning point in that game. Philly was still. I mean, Boston was leading for most of the game.
I don't think it's a coincidence that the Sixers have managed to beat Milwaukee and Boston in situations where Brogdon was out and Smart got ejected. I don't think that Philly is incapable of beating either of those teams, but I do think their lack of guards is something that is a real issue against those teams at full strength. And when you take away Smart, you take away Brogdon, you're getting rid of guys who can defend on the perimeter. You're getting rid of guys who can pass, guys who can dribble, guys who can knock down open threes, which Smart has miraculously become able to do. And
Try again.
he's turned into an awesome player.
Yeah.
And without those guys, Philly operates much more successfully. And I will say, this is the weird thing about Philly.
Okay.
I know you're ready for this.
Yes,
Is
I'm
that
so ready. Born,
you have Embiid, you have Simmons, you have Butler, you have Tobias Harris.
and you can still only just beat the half-strength Celtics.
But that's it, right? In my mind, a team with 3 stars, legit stars, and a very good player in Tobias Harris, who's kind of like an upgraded Ersan Ilyasova, that team should go to the finals. That team almost, I'm on the verge of saying that team almost should beat the Warriors. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they really should, but they almost. Embiid, Simmons, Butler, Tobias Harris. That team should be competitive with the Warriors.
Absolutely.
And you have to look at why it doesn't work. And you've got JJ Redick's lack of guard skills. He can't dribble, he can't defend the position, but he can shoot. And then you have a roster that puts non-shooters on the floor with Ben Simmons, TJ McConnell, and Boban, and doesn't have enough guys who have perimeter defense or shooting, etc. And you're like, a couple tweaks to that roster, and like that team is the best team in basketball, except for the Warriors.
For sure.
They're so close to being fucking great.
They're so close, but then they have Mike Scott putting up 10 shots a game, and that's just disgusting.
I mean, I don't even mind him just as like a role player in the mix. It's really just the lopsided roster of not having guards. No shaming. But you look at this team, you're like, this is an opportunity to go to the finals and maybe win a fucking championship. And you couldn't figure out the backup center situation, and you couldn't add one other guard or even a wing who could ball handle a little. That's all it would have taken.
And
Justin Holiday, Yogi Ferrell, and like, I don't know, Dwayne Dedman. Like just like simple shit that would have costed a couple second rounders.
And guess what? It hasn't even. It was going to cost them a couple second rounders. Now it's going to cost them a second round berth in the playoffs and probably the services of Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris next year.
But that to me is the bummer here. It's not that
They screwed the pooch on their chance.
Yeah, and the thing is, I still think they can go to the finals. It's possible. I'm not predicting that the Sixers are going to get like ousted by any of these teams particularly. They're good. But I think that if you were going to put an odds on it, my odds would not be that they will go to the finals. I would say they can, but they're not a favorite. If they had a couple of those players, man, I would say the Sixers are going to win a championship.
Have you seen a single Sixers game this year where they've been consistent from tip off to the final buzzer? Or is it they're always such a roller coaster ride?
Well, they've had a couple great games, but the real thing is that, where they played
They can't
well
sustain when they
throughout,
have a
they
bench
just
come in.
blew someone out. But right, so even if the starters play well, you're running these rotations in there where you've got TJ McConnell and Simmons. Okay, now you can't score. You have Redick on the court with McConnell. Now your defense is compromised and your offense is compromised. You put Boban out there with TJ, And you're like, well, now the entire game seems to rotate around TJ and Boban while Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris are standing around. It's the bench and the lopsided roster are like, it's really just wild to think that this might have been a season with some cosmetic changes that Philly could have literally won a championship in the NBA. And as you said, it might be for naught because Butler might just sign with the Clippers or the Nets. Then they re-up Tobias Harris, and this whole thing is kind of now moved into limbo where you just don't have the high-end talent anymore. It's right there, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, it was right there.
I mean, I do think they still can go to the finals. Like, it could happen.
All right, cross your fingers, hope to die, stick a needle in your eye. Whatever, it's not going to happen.
I mean, they still have more high-end talent than any team in the East. Like, they do. They can beat these teams, but I wouldn't say that they will. I don't know. I'm actually feeling pretty optimistic about the Sixers. It's just that little lingering thing like, shit, dude. Right there.
How do you feel optimistic about them? The Celtics were fucking torching them until Marcus Smart went out.
It's more that they beat Milwaukee and they beat Boston in the same
They
week.
built the same. Yeah.
No, I know. I went into too in depth about the whole issue with missing guards, etc. But they still
Yeah, but they're not getting any guards before the playoffs.
No, they are not.
All right, so
I'm just saying Philly's kind of rolling right now.
I think you might be in a certain creek minus a paddle.
It's possible. I'm just saying they beat Indiana. They smoked Indiana. They've beaten all the other good teams in their conference within the last week or so, except for Toronto. They're going to finish the season probably winning like 16 of 17 again. Like they're cruising, and you're starting to see maybe Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler and all these guys getting a little more accustomed to things. And I'm like, this is what sneaking suspicion is, that the high-end talent could overwhelm the lack of roster construction.
It'll kick in just at the perfect time for you and your, what are they called? Is it the Liberty Bells?
The Liberty Bells?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, this is me being optimistic about the Sixers.
Yeah,
I'm like, they're probably fucked, but maybe they're not.
What's that next to your chair? Is that a mailbag I see?
Oh, is that there's a Sixers mailbag over here.
Yeah.
No, it's not a Sixers mailbag. It's just a mailbag. That was our friends on Twitter came through and gave us some questions. And we're going to pick a few right now, and we're going to do a few more later.
This is our virgin voyage with a mailbag as well, so it could be a complete, unmitigated, goddamn disaster.
In fact.
Especially since we are missing one piece of the pie.
At the same time, that's why we're stooping.
That's why you are doing it.
That's why we're stooping to doing mailbags, because the absence of the notable Andrew Kuo. So, first question comes from our friend Lucian Dixon of Brooklyn, New York. We know him. We're going easy. We're going with someone we know. He says, "What are the ethics of playing pickup ball with 1-pointers and 2-pointers?" Jordan, do you want to handle that?
Yeah, sure. I think the only ethics is really it just lets the game go on a little longer, right?
We want morality here. What's the morality?
I don't really have a moral compass, so I'm not 100% sure. You would have to maybe throw something at me, and I would have to see if I recognize it as moral or not. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I can do that.
Okay. What makes
Playing pickup ball with 1s and 2s is deeply unethical.
Okay. Why?
Because that's not how you play basketball. Basketball is played with 2s and 3s.
So you're saying a 2 is worth 100% more than a 1 where it should only be worth 50% more than a 2?
Exactly. Now, 2s and 3s have been the standard in
I thought this was
high
like
school. High school,
all right.
college, professional. Prior to that, all baskets were the same. So playing with 1s, also ethical. All baskets are created equal. All 1s, ethical. 1s and 2s perverts the game of basketball. On no level anywhere should 2s be worth more than 1s. And actually, in like
So for those listening at home, that it would be the equivalent of a 3 being worth 4 points in the National Basketball Association.
Exactly.
Or the Children's League, known as the National Children's Assholes Association.
I was working on a story that I never ended up.
How many stories are you working on? You seem to be working on lots of stories every week.
This was months ago, maybe even last year. I never ended up running it. It was like during a lull in basketball season, and I talked to Daryl Morey briefly about it, and I asked,
Do you think everyone's aware you're a journalist with highfalutin connections in basketball
"Why don't you
yet?
stop twitching your leg over there?"
It's too much caffeine.
Daryl Morey said that they would completely change the way that they play, and the Rockets, of course, shoot more threes than any team in history if it was ones and twos. So it would pervert the game even further than it is already
So
perverted.
basically, the most unethical team in basketball would double down on being unethical.
Right. So we're saying ones and twos deeply immoral.
Okay. Is there anything else immoral about it? Or is it simply just the statistical advantage that it gives to...
Teams who can shoot.
Would you rather play 2s and 3s then, or just 1s?
Twos and threes is fantastic. That is ethical because it is like basketball is.
And so then with 2s and 3s, then you're playing to 21 and not 11? Otherwise, the run's too short. You can't get your groove on.
Pick up ball, full court twos and threes. Games typically go 15 or 8 or 16. You might, get a 21 run if it's last game. And
I
people
love
are
a
tired.
21 run.
21's great, but if there's people waiting, you kind of got to go 15, 16 because it's like 1, 7, 8. It's kind of the same deal.
You know what's the worst is when it's a really tight game and it's going to 11 or 15 or something, and you've got next, and there's like 15 minutes left, and you think you can get one more in, and then everyone's like halfway through the game, like, let's just run it to 21, and you're like, fuck. You gotta wait. You gotta watch the rest of the game while you take off your sneakers, and you and the other guy that's sitting on the bench kind of look at each other like, well, fuck these guys.
And you don't really want to like put on your coat and leave the gym because you don't want to miss the camaraderie of everyone kind of like shooting the shit afterwards. You're like, oh, I'm just going to leave by myself while the boys are playing ball and like go catch the train and kind of sweat your way home.
Yeah.
Knowing that they're still out there like, all right, run it to 35, fuck it.
And then you have to wait another 20 minutes for everyone else to get dressed, and you've already cooled down and you're fucking freezing. Everyone's out there like...
It's an unethical situation.
Totally unethical. All right.
This question is more for you since you were baffled by that one initially. This one you can understand right off the bat. This comes from Andy Charlie, handle Andrew_Chaz. How young would LeBron have to be for either of you to beat him one-on-one?
Like at the peak of my basketball career or right now? How old am I? I'm me. I'm an old.
Let's defer to
woman.
you your decision. I think you say now.
Okay, so I'm a 40-year-old lady.
You're an old lady with like bad hoof.
Okay,
How is your hoof?
it's getting there. Yep, it's good. My dunking days are over. Bod slaps only.
Which are ethical.
Ethical bod slaps. Unless you're doing it on a reverse layup, when that's just kind of weak.
That was kind of my most showy move I could do.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Guess what I just said.
I haven't pulled off the reverse glass slap in a while, which is also a product
That's
of old
good.
age.
That's good.
I'm more ethical.
Everybody's very happy about that.
More washed, less ethical. More ethical?
Just washed.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, back to the question here. The age that
8.
LeBron James, 8.
8 years old.
You think at 9 he could beat you now?
Yeah.
Whew. How did you arrive at 8?
Well, I was thinking he could probably shoot at 9 pretty well. I don't know. I need to go back and watch that documentary. Like maybe he was a late bloomer. I just think he's much faster than me, more brash than me, and would care more than me, apparently, since I never had that drive to become like the best player of all time.
Which was all that was standing between you and GOAT status.
Pretty much.
The drive.
Application. Push-ups. Chin-ups. What are those, like, gutter lifts?
The Rough Riders.
Hey,
the Rough Riders workout.
Yeah.
Find a park and do some pull-ups. Do some lunges and dips. I would say...
Well, this is the other thing. I feel really weird like posting up a little kid.
So your personal shame comes involved. So
Yes.
you just kind of want to shoot threes. He's giving you threes. They're unethical. You're missing them. He's scooping it up and then just running by you in for layups.
I'm airballing threes, and he's just like catching them under the basket and putting them straight back up. How about you? How old would...
All right, so based on that documentary,
Yeah.
I believe he had his growth spurt like after freshman or sophomore year, because there was the documentary that came out about him and his high school buddies who are lifelong friends, etc. And he went from being like, oh, there's like a young LeBron like scoring some layups to like doing tomahawk dunks over like a 1.5 year span. So I need a couple years before that. I'm not going to beat the one that was like right before the growth spurt because he was already good. I need like a couple years pre.
So you're saying 10 or 11?
I feel like 12. I feel like 12 is okay. Because then you don't run into I'm playing against a kid, like in the way of an 8-year-old. An 8-year-old's like dribbling the ball with like both hands, bouncing it off their own head. Like a 12-year-old's kind of trying to play. And that way you can be like, oh, fuck this 12-year-old. You're not beating me. So the shame goes out the window.
Oh man, I'm just like seeing you as like the Denzel character. It's just like,
That's just because I like doing moves without an actual basketball. Just
on.
going around in the park shooting like fictional, imaginary basketballs
name?
into the moonlight.
Jake. Just like, come on, son. So mean, but he did make Jesus into the fictional character and player he is.
It was really that
20 years ago.
That Tom Izzo treatment served his son well.
I want to see Izzo trying to like get a low jack off his ankle because he beat up a player.
House arrest Izzo.
Yeah.
Have you watched the opening sequence for He Got Game at any time recently?
Yeah, like maybe once a fortnight, which is 2 weeks for those who don't know.
Do you tear up?
No, but it's a nice. I don't think I tear up at any Spike Lee movies, but it is a very nice ode to New York City basketball.
But also it shows like kids in the farmland taking shots at, rims attached to plywood. It's like a universal
Ripped straight from the
love of game.
Hoosiers script.
Fuck Hoosiers.
They got to remake that goddamn movie.
Would you rather see Hoosiers remade, like in a modern retelling, or Blue Chips remade in a modern retelling?
Blue Chips is a modern retelling of itself. Blue Chips is the perfect basketball movie. Shout out to William Friedkin. Come on our pod. We want to talk hoops movies.
I have not watched Blue Chips in quite some time. I do remember what it's about and the corruption and Nolte's ethics, morals, being compromised. Shaq playing in a weird gym in Louisiana. But you think that movie is modern enough as it is? You couldn't redo it now with social media and the sort of full breadth of knowledge we now have around which seventh grader is the number one prospect in the land and like ABCD camp.
I mean, it would be an update, but the crux of that film is basically what we see now and what people are complaining about in NCAA of like kids not getting paid, boosters needing to do what they need to do to get their team together to get the win, coaches compromising themselves, being pressured by other people. The only thing that's not realistic about that film is that they actually own up to it in the end.
What's kind of interesting is that we've always had this perspective on college sports, that it was fundamentally unfair. And
do you mean we as in you and I, or we as in the way Kuo says it, which is like
the royal?
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone kind of understood that, but it was more acceptable back then. Right now, you're like, this is deeply fucked. This shouldn't be happening. Back then, we all kind of knew it, but it was fine. And it's sort of, there's been the Overton window has shifted a little bit.
It was, I mean, Blue Chips at the time was definitely an expose of sort on that. It was not an aspirational, like, win at the last second sports movie. It was like, this is fucked up, and these kids are amazing. They're being exploited by old white men systematically. That's what that movie is about, even though it did feature like Anthony Hardaway and Shaq and some really cool basketball action, it was really about the moral dilemma of exploiting children that you're babysitting.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So yeah, I think you could remake it, but I think it would kind of be redundant because the overarching point is there. Plus, it's one of the greatest sports movies ever. So let's remake Hoosiers.
I'm more saying that it
with
was
Owen
it was,
Wilson.
It was
I want
definitely
Owen Wilson to be the drunk dad.
I'm more saying that its subversiveness has become more mainstream in our sort of collective opinion about the morality of college sports. But yes, tell me, what do you want to see out of Hoosiers 2?
More Hoosiers.
More Hoosiers.
That was the Kuo voice.
Owen Wilson is the drunk dad, the Dennis Hopper character. Vince Vaughn as the Gene Hackman coach.
So this is Wedding Crashers?
Yes, which means that we get Bradley Cooper.
Oh, here we go.
Yes.
Can he be maybe a country singer down on his luck?
He's a suicidal coach of the opposing team. Or maybe we need Coops as the... No, he's done it too many times before. As the Dennis Hopper character.
An inspirational victory over the team with ethnic children.
Yes, Hoosiers too. Hoosiers is...
Just switch it around so this one's about like the team from the like impoverished area that beats up on the prep school kids. Just flip the whole dynamic and then you'll have a winner.
Oh, so it's basically Bring It On 2.
Bang.
More bringing it.
Bring it on more.
Bring it on more.
All right.
What else is in this
this
fucking
mailbag?
invisible mailbag?
Jordan.
Yes.
This question is from Raid_Sammy on Twitter. And they want to know, this is a incredible question. This is from someone who has apparently never tweeted, which is very interesting other than that. They have one tweet.
Is it me?
This seems to be their one tweet. And they say, Jordan, what do you like about Australia?
Oh, to keep it short and sweet. Fruit. This is really good in Australia. Produce in general. And Egg Boy.
Shout out to Egg Boy.
That's it. That's all I got. Fruit and Egg Boy.
Would you return for either?
No. I can get fruit all over the world.
Mr. Hoity-toity, then.
Whatever. Ooh, yes, I hear the fruit. I hear the fruit in Portugal and Mexico City is out of this world.
I don't know about Portugal and fruit. They really are more about the jamon,
I don't know what that is.
ham.
Oh, Yamon.
Yeah. All right. There was a question here that was a little curious, and it had a lot of weird dimensions to it. This is from Senior Jerk Alert, who goes also by Boban Harris, and I'm going to address the first part of his question. He said, as parents nationwide face an endemic of helicopter children, is the NBA in the midst of a helicopter parent problem? I don't really know what he's asking here, but let's phrase this in this way. Are players in the NBA better served by quote-unquote helicopter parents' behavior?
Is a helicopter parents like Axe from Billionaires?
I haven't seen that
Billions.
show.
Sorry, Billionaires. Axe from Billions, where he just like misses softball practice, so he sends his helicopters to go and pick them up and drop them off.
No, definitely
like, it's
not.
just really rich parents.
No, I like that interpretation, but it's a sort of modern phrase. The helicopter parent is someone who hovers around their child, and
Like a lingerer.
They're a lingerer, but it's like they don't let their kids live their own lives. They flutter around them at all times, making sure that they're aware of everything going on.
Lavabo.
Yeah, that would qualify. And there was a recent New York Times article about another style of parent, and they coined the phrase the snowplow parent, which is the one that basically gets all obstacles out of the way of their kid and makes their life incredibly easy, and is that
It's a Laurie Lofton type.
Is that bad for the kid ultimately? But we're talking about helicopter parents, and if we're going to clumsily apply this to the NBA, I think we should use it about helicopter coaches. So here's a little debate that I saw recently, or at least a perspective, was that Paul George was asked about how he developed from a young player and a small role player as a rookie into the star that he is now, a borderline MVP candidate. And he talked about under Coach Vogel with the Indiana Pacers that they had him start slow. And those were the teams that went to the playoffs, and they had Roy Hibbert, and they had Danny Granger, and they had David West. And he was a small component of those teams. And he played defense, he took corner threes, he didn't create. And he talked about that being a key to him then adding to his skill set and becoming a great player. And people brought up Kawhi Leonard, who famously had a helicopter coach in Coach Pop. And in the same way, he started out with a small role, shooting threes, playing defense, and then ultimately morphed into a perennial MVP candidate.
But isn't a helicopter parent, it seems like it has a more negative connotation where like you won't let them live their lives?
Maybe, but there's a little, I'm just saying this is the clumsy analog that we're making.
It's pretty clumsy, yeah.
But it's also kind of, it's a clumsy way into sort of an interesting conversation. Because we have the other side, where you have Ben Simmons start, do your thing, win Rookie of the Year. Doncic, play 1,000,000 minutes, do your thing. Trae Young, make mistakes. LeBron James, do your thing. Where do you fall? Do you have a foot in each camp, as one would say? Do you think that a rookie is better suited with a small role that they grow gradually, or do you throw them into the fire and let them sort of live their life?
I really don't know because I'm still trying to figure out what a fucking helicopter parent means in this scenario.
God damn it, Jordan! I really went out of my way to turn that into a reasonable question.
I know, but by way of completely avoiding it in the first place. I don't know. There's what we've seen very recently with the production of D'Angelo Russell this year, that he was kind of given the keys to LA in their like shitty rebuild years. You know, he had the ball and he didn't come through, so to speak, or he didn't have as much success as they would like out of a number 2 pick immediately. And so they ill-advisedly shipped him out.
As they would say, ill-advisedly, thus.
Yeah, shipped his ass out, and it turns out to have been quite a mistake because he seems like the best draft prospect or draft that what are they called? Draftee that they've had over the last 5 years. Like Lonzo's been injured and ineffective at times. Ingram hasn't really come on.
You're not saying anything that's debatable here. Russell made the All-Star team. He's very good.
Yeah.
He's definitely better than Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Kuzma, Hart, Zubik, who's now not even on the team, but he's absolutely better than any of those guys.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really difficult because it seems to be case by case. You could say that he was thrown in the deep end and then it still took him 4 years to develop, or maybe Paul George took 4 years to develop it. Is it because he was given limited minutes or because it just takes 4 years?
I think of one of the players that would be brought up as maybe he should have done it differently would be Andrew Wiggins, right? Where he took a ton of shots early on in his career, and he never really developed maybe those components that we were talking about, like drain the three, play defense, make the right pass. Instead, he was told to just get out there and get buckets and win Rookie of the Year. I could see that argument.
Yeah, but he was someone like D'Angelo Russell or Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. They were drafted at their spots. Wiggins was drafted and traded for the then franchise cornerstone. So they had to replace Kevin Love and his production and his celebrity with somebody. And so they had to replace it with the person he was traded for.
My general take on this debate is that it probably doesn't matter at all for the player. It probably matters for the team. if you're the Spurs and you're trying to win a championship and you say, all right, Kawhi Leonard, late lottery pick, do your thing all season. You're like, yeah, but we're not doing that, man. We have Duncan and we have Manu and we have Tony and we're trying to do actual things here. So you know what you're going to do? To help us, you're going to play defense and you're going to shoot that three. We're not going to let you ISO and attack repeatedly over and over because that doesn't make us a better team. In the same way, when Paul George uses that as an example, you were on a good team. You were an Eastern Conference finalist. You were threatening to beat the Miami Heat in like your second season on a team that took the big three to 7 games. You can't have a rookie play a major role on a very good team. And that's why the Mavs suck, despite the fact that Doncic is great and has played fantastically well. And to be honest, I had no way was trying to bring this up, but let's shout out fucking basketball genius Ben Simmons. I mean, he played a huge role on a 50-plus
You were in no
team.
way trying to bring this up. I feel like you changed the whole concept of this helicopter parent question just to bring up Ben Simmons. It's
One
not
could- one
beyond
could-
the realm of possibility that you just spent the last 10 minutes trying to find a way to talk about Ben Simmons.
It is a fair accusation. It is not outside the realm of possibility, but I'm not that smart.
Fair enough.
I cannot think that far in advance. So if you may be playing checkers, but I'm playing Parcheesi
Yes.
over here, friend.
I don't know what Parcheesi is, but it sounds Italian.
Parcheesi definitely sounds Indian.
Parcheesi.
Is that Hindi? Is it
Maybe it's just because it's got cheese in it, and most Italian stuff has cheese in it.
Urdu?
I don't know what Urdu is. You keep throwing all these like erudite things at me. Fucking wordsmith Detrick over here. Although the interesting thing that you brought up in that long-winded non-answer to a question.
Hindi. It is indeed Hindi.
Okay, it's Hindi. You brought up Wiggins and Doncic and Dallas. And Minnesota and Dallas are two very interesting teams for me in the West. They're both out of the playoffs. They're both toiling around downstairs in the Western Conference.
Toiling downstairs.
Mavs had a nice little like beginning to the season, and then they like regressed to the mean, as absolutely everybody likes to say. Whereas Minnesota they started the season in a lot better position than they've ended it.
Can you pick one of these to talk about first?
Sure.
Okay,
Minnesota.
great.
Go.
The one thing that's interesting about Minnesota, and you were right, they're a bad team that is not making the playoffs, is how consistently they've been a bad team that doesn't make the playoffs. And you can look back at the way this team was built, and you look at their draft picks, and it's like, okay, you had Wiggins, after you traded Kevin Love with the number 1 pick in the draft. You had Zach LaVine, number 13. You had Karl Anthony Towns, who was number 1. You had Chris Dunn, who was number 5. Then you traded Chris Dunn and the number 7 pick for Jimmy Butler. And you're like, that was a lot of talent coming in. And LaVine was in that deal as well. But you basically had 2 number 1s on your roster and Jimmy Butler. And they were a top 5 team last season. And Butler got hurt, and he left via trade. And now they're bad again. And Wiggins has this huge contract. Cat's going to have this huge contract. How does this team do anything except be a not even quite marginal playoff team? Like, how do they do it? To me, despite the fact that Thibs is gone and maybe they'll make better decisions in free agency, maybe they won't recruit the entire 1997 Bulls to flesh out their roster, But a team built around Cat and Wiggins, you are not making the playoffs. Like, you are fucking doomed. You're doomed.
Not even close to making the playoffs.
That's crazy. You have 2 number 1 picks, and you're doomed.
I think that the only way out of this is to trade Cat. You cannot trade Wiggins. It would be impossible to trade Wiggins without giving up numerous number 1 picks. Instead of giving them up, why don't you just get a bunch back? If you can somehow trade Cat for 2 very good players and a number 1 pick from a really bad team, that might be your only... Maybe Boston would be interested in Cat instead of Anthony Davis.
I mean, but that's the vicious circle here. Is like, all right, we nailed it. We got a number 1 pick. We got Cat. He's great. He was, after Butler got traded, there was a lot of stuff said about Cat being immature or soft. He balled out the whole second half of the year. Cat has been phenomenal. He's a great young talent. And Wiggins is not. And that's your conundrum, right? You've got this franchise building block. And you're like, if we trade him, we're right back where we started, just being awful and trying to get picks. You almost have to say, we'll give you Cat, but you have to take Wiggins.
Ooh. Then use that money to get some free agents to Minnesota. It's never going to happen. They're just fucked.
No, I mean,
sell the team,
what's the
move
phrase?
it to Seattle.
Fucked every day from, isn't there a phrase? Something?
Fucked every day from birth.
Every day from Tuesday. Isn't there some Australian adage?
Oh, no, I don't
here?
know this one. I don't know. Every which way but fucked. They're so stupid.
So let me just give you a quick rundown of
give me this rundown
of Andrew Wiggins. It's even more grim than you think. Because you have Andrew Wiggins, who makes $27 million next year, then $29.3, then $31.3, then $33.3. As you said, completely unmovable. Arguably the worst contract in NBA history. I think that's kind of fair. Now, you had those ones like Juwan Howard, who was not that great and made a lot of money, and it was over 8 years or whatever. But in the modern era, when you can only sign guys for 5 years, I think Andrew Wiggins probably has the worst contract that we've ever seen. You also have Georgie Dieng under contract for $17 million over the next 2 years.
Cool.
Sick. So really, it's like, can Covington and Dario, the erstwhile Sixers, can they come back and make this team good? Because Covington is really a good player, and he missed most of the season, and he's been declared out for the year.
Same as Rose, same as Teague. I mean, why not? If they're even slightly injured, shut these dudes down, because you're probably not going to get anyone else next year.
I am not optimistic about the Timberwolves. But if I was another team, I would be trying to pry away Covington this offseason, because he's got a great contract. He's undervalued because defense is typically something that is not appreciated in the way that scoring is. He would be my absolute target if I was a team trying to make a jump from being a good team to a contender. Like, the Rockets should be trying to figure out any way to just add Covington to that team, because you have Covington and PJ Tucker along with like Harden and Paul. Like, that's the team you're trying to build.
I think Ainge sells the farm for Cat. I think Anthony Davis is not going to the Celtics any which way but loose. That's a pipe dream. He's going to lose Al Horford. It's time. Push all the, what is it called? Pushing all the chips?
Put your chips into the center?
Push your chips into the center, Danny Ainge, and go for Cat when everyone least expects it.
Okay, so let's wrap this up with a final reach around into the mailbag,
Okay.
because this is a sex cop related question.
Okay.
This comes from Howdy Jimbo, who also goes by Human Stone. And he wants to know, of Cookies Hoops, which Sixer would you let smash your wife?
Ooh. That's a spicy dumpling, if ever I heard one. Also, not an easy question to answer. So I'll go through my process of elimination.
Thank you.
It could never be Ben Simmons, because I would be slightly upset that she decided to step out with another Australian. You know how like guys get weird ego things? That would be one of those. It could never be Embiid because I'd just hear about it too much afterward. Like, yo, I fucked your girl text like constantly.
And Embiid's already said that's a thing. You know, if another NBA player canoodles with your lady, you're going to hear about it on the court. So clearly he's projecting. Like, he's going to tell you about it.
Could never be JJ Redick because I'd be too horrified that she chose a dude with Kings of Leon tats over me. Boban would be an awful one to think about for obvious reasons. Also, like there'd be like those inevitable like Us Weekly, People Magazine pictures of like the height and size discrepancy to continually remind you. I'm gonna go with Tobias Harris because he's pretty as fuck, and he's new in town, needs some friends.
Tobias is a good one because it's like, that's fine. Yeah, no big deal.
But I mean, you as the Sixers fan, like completely obsessed with them over and over.
Not enough, according to some listeners.
Not enough. Which of the Sixers would have sex with your significant other that would cause you to cease from being so goddamn in love with them?
I mean, I think that's a better
Does
question.
Brett Brown count?
No, right? He can't. My thing is like the question as it was originally phrased is tough because you're not like you don't get to say. Like it's like who would you prefer if you had to pick someone? Not like does your significant other have a say in it at all, right? So my thing is like, are you going to give them an experience to remember? Like T.J. McConnell, like what kind of gift is that to give to your?
But who's giving
other?
giving this gift? It just said smash. That doesn't sound like it's a gift at all. It just sounds like they're just smashing. If it was a smash and grab and it was going to show them a nice life afterward.
Right.
Filled with millions and like.
But my thing is like, yeah, I mean, anyone can like get smashed by an NBA player. Like you jump on Raya, there's like NBA players left and right. It's more like, do you just say, look, here's Boban, have an experience.
I don't think
have something to write home about. It's a literal giant.
I don't think you get to pick. It's just more like which one you don't get to pick.
That's what
I'm
saying.
What are you doing? You're not pimping your fucking wife out to
But
a Sixer.
that's what I'm saying.
It's like which one would you be least upset by?
Got it. That's what I was saying. It's like you.
That's why I did my process of elimination of like to who I would be least upset by, not who I'm going to gift to the. See, this is why you're so fucked up about the Sixers. I thought about it as like which one would like hurt me the least, and you were thinking about which Sixer you could pimp your girl out to.
Absolutely not. It's more like, how are you going to say, this is the one that Tobias Harris. You are now going to be involved with my lady.
Again, this sounds like a gift.
So, Tobias Harris, good one. I'm like, Boban, just do something crazy. Go on a Boban mission.
Speaking of Boban, very excited for John Wick 2. See him get his jaw eliminated by a book. Read this, Boban. It was probably the joy of sex. He was learning all those positions for your wife, Ben.
Poor Boban, man. He had his big
Oh,
career
God,
break.
why did I start that? Now we're going on a Boban thing.
Boban Bender?
I don't care what. I don't even want to know what you think about at night, Ben. You know what I'm going to think about? This perfect pod for at least like 5 minutes.
That was pretty close to the perfect pod, as perfect as you can get without...
A perfect two-man pod.
Right. I mean, there are different tiers to perfection.
Kind of missed the little bastard. I hope he gets home safe.
His big family trip where it's just incessant photos of eating dumplings.
Yeah. Dumplings and vague Supreme rip-off T-shirts.
And zipping around, I don't know, Mount Fuji, taking photos of cookies as. Oh, speaking of which, some new cookies sweatshirts in the store. We got the green code ones that are the 20th anniversary of a cult classic movie. And there's also the varsity ones.
Wait, they turned Goosebumps into a movie?
There's also the varsity ones. So they're up on the site thanks to Moses. and Yasmin and Mia who put those photos together. And for the Sixers faithful, there may be a final Bullies on the way. So that will be in the next couple of days.
Cookies.